You know how every review or video essay about one of the newer Sonic games starts out with some variation of Sonic the Hedgehog has had a really rough time transitioning to 3D? Well, I'm going to make a bold prediction and say that we are heading towards that future with Pokémon as well. Hey everyone, I'm RVRox, and Pokémon discourse has been at an all-time high in recent years, with basically every Pokémon release since X and Y having some form of unfavorable critical response. The public consensus of Pokémon and its fanbase has slowly shifted into one full of unending cynicism and bad faith arguments against the entirety of the Pokémon company, and weirdly enough, specifically Junichi Masuda. But all of that is against the point. Regardless of where you stand on Pokémon past, if you have chosen to stray the path of Pokémon, or if you've loved every single entry in the series, I'm here to talk about the newest game in the series, Pokémon Legends Arceus. This game has incited many a nervous laugh amongst the larger internet, because while many people critical of the Pokémon brand like myself have been optimistic for this game to truly outshine its predecessors, we also really had no reason to expect it to be any better than anything that came before it. The quiet unease towards any sense of excitement for this game before its release was definitely palpable, but the game has been out for quite a while now, so it's time to finally sit down and answer the question. Is Pokémon Legends Arceus actually any good? And perhaps more importantly, does it redeem the past couple years of unsavory actions and disappointing releases from the Pokémon company? Well, to answer that question, I have to start at the beginning and tell you all about why I have come to both love and hate this franchise so much. I grew up with Pokémon, and growing up with Pokémon means one of three things. You were obsessed with the games, you were obsessed with the anime, or you were obsessed with both. I myself fell into camp number 3. I vividly remember pretending that I was a Pokemon trainer with my friends on the school playground. With a Jigglypuff and a Blaziken at my side, I could take down anything that stood in my way. And while due to monetary issues, it would take me quite a long time to actually sit down and play a lot of these games themselves, I still found myself thoroughly engrossed in every new generation until that time came where I could finally start playing them for myself again. My love for Pokemon would only grow as I got older. A love that ran so deep that I still to this day surround myself with Pokemon paraphernalia. In fact, a large part of my channel's branding is a spray edit of a Pokemon trainer I made to look like myself. And if all of that wasn't enough, I have spent actual, real-life money on a device that makes my Pokemon experience easier. I do all these things out of love, out of attachment, which is part of the reason why, especially in recent years, I've been so critical of the Pokemon brand. With a lot of love to give also means a lot of disappointment when it doesn't live up to the hype. While other Nintendo franchises have done nothing but innovate themselves over the years, Pokemon has always had this particularly formulaic approach. And don't get me wrong, every mainstay Nintendo franchise for the most part does more iterative sequels than anything else, but Pokemon always especially felt like it dragged its heels in the mud for change. It took longer than the others to go into fully 3D graphics. It took longer than the others to finally try and reinvent its core formula. And probably most importantly, it took the longest out of any mainstay Nintendo franchise to actually make it to a home console. It's easy to forget nowadays, but Pokémon, for all of its successes and failures, was a mobile device game for the longest time, which, whether we were aware of it at the time or not, made it so that it was much easier to forgive certain aspects of its design. And that's coming from a pretty outspoken fan for the Kalos games. But as I am sure anyone making their way to this video probably already knows, the public sentiment for Pokémon is at an all-time low. And this is largely due to the fact that it didn't have as graceful a transition to the living room screen as we all would have liked. While all the other games making their way to the Nintendo Switch were these large, meaty experiences, or at least good enough looking experiences, Pokemon fumbled the bag more than a few times. Zelda got Breath of the Wild, Mario got Odyssey, Smash got Ultimate, but Pokemon got Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. The Let's Go games were remakes of the first two Pokemon games to grace the Game Boy, but remakes that many regarded as worse than the other older remakes. But hey, that's fine. These games are harmless and mainly meant for the Go crowd. They probably are waiting to really blow the lid off this thing for the next gen. Sword and Shield were just as formulaic as games previous, but added some new things that were generally looked at in a positive light. Not really showstoppers by any means, but a good time nonetheless if you just wanted to get some Pokemon in. But maybe they would iron out all the kinks in time for the remakes of Diamond and Pearl. Possibly the most hyped up remakes of any Pokemon game to this day. And you guessed it! Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl also failed to live up to fans' expectations. Needless to say, Pokemon has had an interesting half-life on the Switch, and one that has inspired nearly every salty Splatoon-going content creator to make really long videos talking about how the franchise is disappointing in one way or another. But a lot has been riding on this new release. The cynicism that usually accompanies Pokemon has been replaced by cautious optimism on the internet front, and I was just the same. We all wanted the game to be good, but expecting good was dangerous. Especially to those of us who felt we had been burned so many times. But this cautious optimism didn't last too long, because before we knew it, the game was out and in our hands. So I shall stop droning on and on about the precursing nervous feelings that this game had put in us and say it outright. I didn't expect this game to be good. I expected to like it despite its flaws, but still think it could be so much better. And while in the end this sentiment turned out to be somewhat true, I could never have predicted that this game would quickly skyrocket to probably be my favorite Pokemon experience that I have ever had the splendor of enjoying. Pokémon Legends Arceus is a foundationally solid game, but much like its predecessors, it's a foundationally solid game that falls flat in many different areas. And while I could gush on and on and on about how much I love this game, it does fall supremely, irredeemably flat in one area, and that is how it looks. The game's looks are about what you would expect from Pokemon. I'll say it plain and simple, the graphics aren't amazing. You frequently stumble upon textures that just don't work properly, the odd piece of scenery that just looks so incredibly off, and just about everywhere that has water has this really gross effect that leaves you being able to see every individual pixel of the texture beneath it. There's still only a few generic, non-important NPC models that get recycled throughout the game, and important NPCs still only switch between their 3 canned animations, leading to incredibly stifled cutscene animation. And worst of all, there is a general ugliness with all of the Pokemon models that give them this rigid, almost JPEG'd quality to them. It's especially confusing given that unlike, say, the Let's Go games, which had a clear art style they were going for, Arceus feels borderline unfinished. The point is, if you really want to hyper-analyze every individual detail and really distant kingdom this shit, there is stuff to complain about. I can already see now a million videos with cry laughing emojis comparing the horse riding to Breath of the Wild to Wordeer in Arceus. Let's be real, everyone hates the graphics in this game, that's no secret, but I grew up with only a Wii, so I can say better than most that it's always been gameplay over graphics. And while there are certainly aspects of the gameplay that I can say with utmost certainty would be better with better graphics accompanying them, I can report back and say they nailed the feel down perfectly. The aesthetics, while they do struggle to stand out with lackluster graphical power, do shine in their own right. The individual set pieces delivered to you across Arceus' different areas tend to blend together, but the ones that stand out really stand out. Walking across Hisui and seeing all the different Pokemon actually move and inhabit the various areas provided gave me a sense of wonder beyond anything I felt in Sword and Shield's wild area. And it's especially amazing given that just around a year ago now, I paid $60 to experience that feeling in new Pokemon Snap. The fact that just looking at Pokemon in this game gave me the same level of enjoyment as the game specifically built around just looking at Pokemon truly breathes wonders into the potential of Arceus. I remember when I first stepped into the game's snow area, the Alabaster Icelands, I was given an odd sense of unease. Something about the Glalie, the vast snow, and the stars in the sky genuinely unnerved me, and that is a feeling I don't don't remember ever having in another Pokemon game. Sure, it's easy to point and laugh at all the things the game fails to do in the visual department, but to do just that undermines the things it does really right. Creating a living, breathing world that has the gameplay seamlessly integrated into it is something I didn't think Pokemon could ever do, and I think it's more important to praise the successes like this than mock the failures, like the graphics. But while the graphics are disappointing, a big part of establishing the world of Hisui that I have neglected to mention thus far is the audio, which is remarkably impressive on all fronts. Just walking around the lone, empty fields with the occasional piano stings is a good time, but then they hit you with the actual tracks this game has on offer, and oh damn do I love them. They reinvent the Pokemon music in a way that is just perfectly fitting for this game. A lot of the music is more atmospheric than anything else, and while that minimalistic implementation may drive some people off from the normally bombastic in-your-face music of the Pokemon franchise, it just means when they throw in those classic, more traditional trainer themes, they hit you with a great sense of nostalgia. And that is nostalgia done right. It's far more impactful to hit you with familiarity after it's been away for a while, rather than just keep bringing it up over and over and over. To talk in uncertain terms, there is a very iconic piano line from one of the more climactic moments of Diamond and Pearl that gets reused in this game. But they get used in two very different genres of music, and as a huge music nerd, it was enough to put a smile on my face and a wet spot in my pants. And that's not even mentioning arguably the best part of the auditory experience of Arceus, and that is how well they combine the sound effects with everything else. I'm not very audio fluent, so describing it in specific terms is difficult for me, but everything has weight and impact behind it now. Whether it be your Pokemon really bringing the hurt down on someone, the juiced up catching sound effects that make you really want to land the shot you're throwing, or just the simple moments of treading through the grass. Everything sounds so remarkably nice. This, in combination with the admittedly limited visuals, creates such an amazing vibe from the second you get going with Arceus. And that get-go is odd, but one that I think works nicely for the premise of this game. Your player character is greeted by the god of Pokemon himself, Arceus, and then is quickly thrust off to Hisui. Your weirdo modern self in a feudal Pokemon nation is judged by just about everyone around you, but soon enough you are given the role of a Pokemon researcher in the Galaxy Team's Survey Corps. The story of Legends Arceus is about the same level of take it or leave it as any other Pokemon game. If you're wanting something super involved, you're not gonna find it here. This game suffers from the same fate gracing most of the modern day Pokemon releases. An overabundance of explanatory dialogue, characters who have remarkable designs but unremarkable personalities, characters who have remarkable personalities but unremarkable designs, and of course a whole lot of telling but not a lot of showing. The cutscenes and story are easily the weakest part of Arceus for me. I don't know if I needed this much connective tissue for a story that basically amounts to going to each individual area, meeting the NPCs that inhabit it, and solving a problem for them. I don't want to dive too heavily into spoiler territory given that the game is still pretty fresh, but I'll just say that there is so much dialogue and bloat for a game that does not need it. For instance, there are two rival clans in this game, the Diamond Clan and the Pearl Clan, and their whole shtick is arguing whether or not the almighty god of the region controls space or time. And the two clan heads, Adaman and Arita, are constantly telling you how much they hate each other. Except they help each other out at every opportunity. This feels like at best flimsy storytelling, and at worst a plotline they just forgot about as the story went on. If you're more like me and motivated purely by the charming NPCs and don't really care about the connective tissue holding everything together, then I suspect you will have a good enough time with the story provided. But despite everything, the story of Arceus does provide one immense positive to the whole experience, and that is how seamlessly it ties into the gameplay. You see, in the world of Hisui established in Arceus, the idea of Pokemon trainers or Pokemon battling is still pretty foreign. This basically means that for the first time ever in a mainline Pokemon game, battling takes a backseat to everything else, and instead, the catchphrase of the Pokemon franchise has become more relevant than ever. The core gameplay loop of Legends Arceus involves you setting out on expeditions, aiming to fill out your Pokedex to the best of your ability. And rather than just catching a Pokemon filling out their Pokedex page for you this time around, you must fill out their Pokedex by completing a variety of different challenges. These challenges change per Pokemon, but there are some common ground between them. Capture a bunch of X, see X do whatever move, defeat X with whatever type, and a decent amount of them actually have some kind of side quest associated with them that counts towards the completion rate as well. You heard me correctly. Side quests with a meaningful reward in a Pokemon game. Granted, not all of these side quests are bangers, but as with a lot of this game, it does a lot right. By completing bits and pieces of your Pokedex over time, you move up the ranks in the Galaxy team bit by bit, creating an overall very satisfying feedback loop in the early game. Go out into the world on an expedition, study as many Pokemon as possible, come back and rank up, and then go back out with a few new tools at your disposal. And with all of these different challenges to take on, you can basically choose how you want to go about your job as part of the Survey Corps. If you're like me and prefer just observing the Pokemon, you can basically trick them into doing certain things for you using some of the items at your disposal. If you like catching Pokemon, well, each Pokemon has its own behaviors in response to seeing a human. Learn all about them and then go for the catch. And if you're the type who likes battling Pokemon, most of them have some kind of task about seeing them use a certain move or be defeated by a certain move, so you're incentivized to engage with each Pokemon in its own unique ways. For the first time ever, I actually feel properly incentivized to complete the Pokedex and catch them all, because it's no longer one endless slog through the same wild Pokemon battles. And speaking of battling, the de-emphasization of Pokemon battles basically reinvents everything about this experience. Gone are the old ways of Pokemon, and now battling is actually a somewhat rare occurrence, or at least it was in the way I chose to play the game. Weirdly enough, the main gameplay bits of Arceus are more like a stealth third-person shooter that can turn into a turn-based RPG, which does wonders for keeping things fresh. Pokemon battles have always been something that I've been super fond of. After all, I have tons and tons of Pokemon that I keep in my Pokemon home for the competitive multiplayer, but in the game's campaigns, I've always found battling to be a little bit awkward. When playing through a typical Pokemon campaign, the depth to be found in battles when exploring this game to its very limits is usually not present, more so benefiting the player to just hit a Pokemon with the move it's weak to. Not to mention, wild Pokemon encounters in the main series are often tiresome, repeated too frequently, and filled with long, drawn-out animations that you get sick of by battle number 5. However, Arceus refines the system in a few key areas that solves nearly all of these problems that I just listed. Firstly, it feels like encounters are more balanced to the individual encounter rather than a set difficulty for areas. I frequently found my lower level Pokemon being able to get good hits off on far higher level Pokemon, as well as vice versa. Wild Pokemon can be brutal in this game. I can still only recall the amount of times I was completely blindsided by enemies on one hand, but that's because while being more difficult, the game is also far more forgiving. If you find a battle with a wild Pokemon to be going south, you can simply just walk away, no longer struggling with spamming the run button hoping you'll actually be able to leave. Also, the new system of battles, having each turn be based on the individual Pokemon's speed rather than the simple you get a turn, I get a turn system, allows for some much needed diversity in battles. And then combine that with the brand new Strength and Agile styles your Pokemon can master, with Strength style basically turning a move into a large heavy hitter in exchange for more turns for your enemy, and Agile style sometimes guaranteeing you being able to sneak in another move before your opponent's next turn, and suddenly I find myself using moves that would never have been used by me in any other Pokemon campaign. My enemy uses a Strength style move, but I somehow managed to survive, so you know what, I'll use a quick Agile style Swords Dance to buff myself up before using a Strength style Aqua Jet to wipe him out. This, alongside much needed better AI on the enemy side, allows for encounters to feel much more mindful than they have in Pokemon Past. And all of that isn't even mentioning that you can just choose not to battle any wild Pokemon. You can stealth around them and instead go for a combatless catch, which funnily enough is what I spent most of my time in this game doing. Running around being stealthy amongst Pokemon truly sells how terrifying the world of Pokemon can be. Pokemon attack the player and you have to bob and weave around these attacks while hoping you can get a good throw in. You have a whole wealth of different items at your disposal to try and subdue Pokemon, and while most of the items given to you would prove to be less useful to me than just a simple ball of mud when it comes to actually catching the damn Pokemon, such a variety of item almost guarantees that you will find different benefits in different things than I did. And that diversification of the gameplay experience is one of the few things that I would argue is a net objective good in any game. I, like a lot of people on the internet, hear the term Pokemon Breath of the Wild and get goosebumps thinking of the possibilities. But one thing I always neglected thinking about in these moments was how combat would work. But giving the player, the human agency in these combat encounters was a genius idea that I don't think I ever thought would work as well as it does here. No more random encounters, Pokemon third-person shooter. It sounds crazy on paper, but it does wonders here, especially since a lot of the boss segments seem to lean into this far harder. Some encounters almost making it seem like a bullet hell of sorts. It's ridiculous, but I love it. I can't help but marvel at the future of these games and think about how a system like this could be implemented. Imagine you're fighting against Lysander for the final time in the inevitable Gen 6 remakes, but between each of his Pokemon going down, you have a short segment of dodging lasers fired from his weird tentacle arms. Or if not Lysander, Ultra Lusamine, or Rainbow Rocket, or any of the immeasurable times in the anime where the Pokemon trainers have to take on their own kind of challenge while the Pokemon are fighting. The applications here could truly revolutionize Pokemon gameplay as we know it, should they choose to keep on with this system. Personally, I would have just taken the smaller things, like the Pokemon actually hitting each other with these moves, or the sped up battles, or the fact that I can now walk around during battles and position the camera to frame some truly epic moments. But all of these different changes at once really make me hopeful that the future of this series is gonna be something truly special. And I guess that brings us to the million-dollar question. Does Pokemon Legends Arceus and its bright future redeem Pokemon and its lackluster past? After 3 pairs of games that are unremarkable at best and worse than games that came out 10 years ago at worst, and spin-offs that range from completely harmless to downright predatory, Pokemon on the Switch has finally gotten its true moment to shine. After all this time, it finally feels like we've gotten Pokemon's big Switch upgrade that it always deserved to have. But it came at the cost of multiple years worth of disappointing releases and discourse that has come to rival the United States political debates in terms of how much it pisses me off. I have been outstandingly critical of every single decision the Pokemon Company has made in the past couple of years, and Arceus was no different. But honestly, I think this game does redeem the Pokemon Company, at least a little bit. In my eyes, the game is a flawed experience, and I hope I conveyed as such in my review, but the game does so much right that I'm willing to forgive the things it does wrong. Whether or not you will be able to come to that same conclusion is a question that I can't answer, but I hope with this video you at least have a much bigger picture to look back on when it's time for you to make this decision for yourself. But for me, Pokemon Legends Arceus has done the impossible. Because for the first time in years, I am genuinely excited to see what the Pokemon Company is going to do next. And if you are excited to see what I'm going to do next, then why don't you subscribe to RV Rocks, ring the bell, like this video, and comment your thoughts on Pokemon Legends Arceus. Before I move on to my normal call to action stuff, I just want to let everyone know that this break in videos was so much longer than I anticipated, and I'm so sorry. So if you managed to stick around, know that you are seen, and I love you. Anyways, I understand that Pokemon discourse can be a pretty divisive topic to bring up just about anywhere, but I truly want to hear your thoughts, and I promise to be kind about them. So talk to me either in the comments or on Twitter at RV of Rocks. But before you do any of that, I have been RV Rocks, and thank you so much for watching. See ya!